Welcome back, everyone, and just a big happy thank you and appreciation for everybody that watches this show and comments, likes, retweets, everything, subscribes. Artist Journal, August 1st, 2025, broadcasting from somewhere deep in the nervous system. We shall find out where. My name's Adrian Pocobelli. So I've been giving this great thought. And I feel like I have a solution. Weirdly. Surprisingly. It seems like a dilemma that can't be solved. But I think I do have a solution. And I'm curious to hear what other people think. And it is, as an artist, if you think you're being copied, you cannot care. You have to take it as a compliment and move on and keep making your work and be happy about it. I would argue that is the actual solution here, because there is no way to police the visual arts. You know, even doing writing is tricky and getting trickier. In a sense, there are no footnotes in the visual arts. Like, at least in writing, we have footnotes. We could go, okay, I read this and therefore this. We simply don't have that. So if you like, and again, I say this, and it may rub a lot of artists the wrong way, because a lot of artists kind of came out strongly kind of supporting what I'm saying, but I just think pragmatically, you cannot care, and you have to take it as a compliment. I don't see another way around it, and you can't let it eat you alive. And I've heard some heart-wrenching stories that people have sent me where they felt this, situation where they felt basically betrayed, right? And as we're going to see, I may even be wrong about RJ from what we see in Urin Yakon's tweet. We'll take a look. We'll see compelling evidence, right? And so all to say, right? And there's no winning, as I've always known. And I knew I was going into a thorn bush, so to speak. But it wasn't because of, honestly, my work. I wasn't mentioning that. It was because I saw what I thought, which probably is in my head, but maybe not. But a lot of people, put it this way, there are legitimate community concerns that I was voicing, is how I would put that. And it's not, I've gotten messages like about, I'm not the only one. Okay, let's put it that way. And as you even see in the support, but I think I have a solution on going forward. And frankly, I don't know if the artists are going to like that, but it's you cannot care. And you have to take it as a compliment if you think someone's copying you. Someone put a really kind of mean comment at the end, but I thought it was actually really powerful. Which at the end of my video on X, which we're going to see, which was, is your ego so thin-skinned, to paraphrase, that you think if someone takes a couple of parts of your process that they all of a sudden this kind of thing, and we'll see the exact thing. And I thought to myself, like, it kind of stung because I was like, I might agree with this. Actually, I do. In a sense, as we'll see in that quote, like, in a sense, and I had actually already had my own resolution with what I thought was happening with my own work. As I was telling a friend, the only person I confided in that whole situation, 3 weeks ago or so, I was like, I'm over it. I don't care. And as I was telling my friend, if I can't make work that is distinct enough or that is impressive enough to distinguish it or that is awesome enough, basically, as I told them, it's on me. And this has to be, I would argue, it is the only way to not let this stuff eat you alive. Because the fact of the matter is, someone could come out, and this is Murakit here, genius work. Wait till you hear the audio. Someone can come out tomorrow and basically ape this style of Murakit's. And what should, so what are you going to do? Should Murakit go out and be like, don't do that? I don't think so. So my take here, my resolution, and it's unfortunate in a sense, but I think this conversation brought us somewhere, at least for me personally, which is you cannot care. And if you think there's any sort of influence, if, oh, all of a sudden someone's talking about Ballard and Crash after you've talked about it for 200 episodes, you go, cool. I love Ballard and Crash, right? I think that's the only way, and I don't own that anyway, right? Like, it's like, all to say, right? So it's like, but I think it's important, like, at least me personally, and I really appreciate the comments of the people who have discussed, our ongoing controversy of the week, saying, I'm glad you brought this up. Because it shows it's an issue. And again, I bring this back to, this is a community issue. This isn't just a Pocobelli issue. This is something that's been, gets dogged around in both the visual, like the contemporary art scene, not as much, but I mean, there was just something, Damien Hirst came out in Art News, like someone was basically saying this article came out, like the thing that made him big, with bugs or something 40 years ago, actually was this guy's work, and it was like a perfect lift, right? So, I mean, if you just have to say it's a compliment and keep making your work and, hope for the best. Otherwise, it'll eat you alive. And it does. It really, and this is why I brought it up. Because as I was kind of mentioning last episode, it feels like parts of your artistic personality are being taken from you. Like, and I don't expect collectors to understand this, but that is the experience of someone where you feel, and who knows, like, right, maybe my little things that I think are breakthroughs, maybe there is antecedents, right? So I think I think in the visual arts, arguably even in contemporary literature, you cannot care, is again my conclusion after brooding over this, like many have. It's been a lightning rod here of conversation, clearly. So we're going to take a closer look. I'm going to be as fair as I possibly can. But I think, in a sense, I think it's just the best way to go. It's like if you think, great. So let's continue. So here is Murakid, and we're going to get into all of it. All the tough comments I lined up for us. So again, thank you everybody for caring about this show enough to basically say something. I take time out of your day to comment and share your thoughts. It shows, as August Ground says, it shows people care. Let us see if we can get some audio here, which is a good thing. I love this. The audio kind of makes it. I mean, it's gorgeous color. But we're kind of back to this music, pixel art combo, and this almost anime figure with a flute, but then you have this drone. And I was just thinking to myself as I paused there, I was like, oh, it's like an angel. Are you going to go, oh, no hygiene, right? So you just got to not care. It's so much better. And so maybe a lot of people are already there, and I had to get there on my own. But I share it here with you for those that do struggle with it, because there are definitely people that struggle with it. I think it's a way forward, actually. So who knows? We're going to discuss everything more in depth here. Just a quick announcement. Walls by Tornado Rodriguez at the Pocobelli Collection. This is on Monday, August 4th. So this coming Monday at 4 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. in Argentina. And that would be 10 a.m. in New York, Eastern Time. So we are going to load up Walls, and how beautiful and amazing and exciting and fun and creative is this? Tornado times Pocobelli. So thank you, Tornado, for being just super cool as I take us into, thorny paths on the eve of her show. Let me just close this. Let's continue. Difficult. Thank you for the support. Shina666, thank you for the mention. You're welcome. It was great to find your work. Awesome. It's fun to bring in new, like I've changed how I basically accumulate art. So it should be fun. Klaus, considering the NFT acronym, a recent comment got me thinking maybe there's really is a better term for blockchain art. It reminds me of some real life convos. I tell you, digital object, as we're going to see, is really catching on. Interestingly, which we discussed on the show 50, 100 episodes ago. Maybe more. So, if I had to guess, it'd be like 60 episodes ago. But who knows? There's a show, but we were discussing it even before I titled the show that, I think. But anyways, it doesn't matter. We're not worrying over, let's not worry about the credits, right? What do you do nowadays? Yeah, I've been doing crypto art recently. Oh, cool. What's that? It's selling your art on the blockchain like NFTs and stuff. Then come the comments, isn't that stuff dead by now? Or I thought it was a scam from the beginning, and so on. Indeed. This is the first association, as I say. Digital objects seems to be the new one. It's what it is. So I'm kind of, I'm kind of all for that I think it's, it's maybe not as, I think it works. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think it works. I think it, as a replacement for NFTs. They're digital objects. Eiley, I respect the stand you have taken with so much art accessible in the public domain and contemporary artists who have designated their work for CCO use. Style lifting of this kind is unnecessary. I also feel that lines surrounding the meaning and role of curators have been blurred. And so was there more? I think that was it. And when there are failures of this magnitude, it's valid to question those who are responsible. In the specific case of Waffles art, I've seen AI scraping attached to unrelated concept works and uncredited homages as well. For me, it is obvious, but I understand perceptions may vary. It's an interesting question. So I'm kind of back to, I think Waffles just can't care. And so that is that. I would say, I was in contact with Object. I did feel like the concerns were being dismissed as influence and borrowing, or influence, let's call it. And maybe that's the better, as I think about it. Because I know exactly what Eiley is talking about. I know the account. And yeah, it seems like an AI scraping of Waffles' work. I think collectors are intelligent enough, or we have to assume they are. And I think generally speaking, they are, to know what's going on. To people who are new to the system, they might not understand, but as they get educated, hopefully they will. And they'll see, oh, actually, what's going on. So I think, because as Eiley said, it weighed heavy on her heart, right? And what she thought was happening with Waffles' work. So again, I think the best mindset here is to not care. And take it as a compliment, I think is the way forward, which really makes the burden on the artist. But I think it's the only real solution here. Violet Bond, so interesting to hear your platform spread, Adrian, BTC, but through Trigamma, Tezos, and Manifold for me too. Such a great episode. A pleasure as always. Thank you, Violet. I appreciate that. And it is a fun spread. I think it's a stylish spread there too. Thank you. Skardek. Damn, you came out with the receipts this episode. It's hard to deny the obvious plagiarism of your work. But now, as someone else said, oh, how is this plagiarism? I mentioned the word plagiarism on Monday, but I did it in an academic context where what happens to students when they plagiarize in the university, how serious it is. But I never said RJ plagiarized me. I don't see myself ever saying that. And frankly, I don't think I have a case to say that. Perhaps you could argue I implied it though, which I think is fair enough. And we'll get into all that, right? And we're going to actually see the compelling evidence to say, maybe this is all in my head, right? And to say, again, where I'm at here, and I hope my journey this week has been an illustration for all artists who struggle with this. You're better off, as I had been doing for my own work, you're better off not caring. It was eating me a little bit, and I was like, finally, I was just like, you know what? If I can't do it, as the comment at the end was saying, if your fragile ego can't take it, then are you, how serious of an artist are you? And, that was kind of my mindset 3 weeks ago. And then I started seeing, and I was just like, oh, And then it got to me. Okay? What I would consider, let's call it just a lot of influence going on of waffles on other people. Okay? Let's continue. It's hard to deny the obvious plagiarism of your work, so I wouldn't use that word. But thank you for basically, I guess the support. But respect for going public and calling it out, I'm sure this wasn't easy for you. No. And what's interesting, again, I hope this was very illustrative, this whole journey, for all parties concerned. For all parties. It was a very difficult decision. And what I want people to know, because there's a lot of people who are very mad at me, who hate me. And I just want to repeat what I said last episode. As I went into this, it was with core values, just with values and my perception of my truth of the values. And I want people to know that. And they can disagree with that, and they can be skeptical of that. They can say, you're jealous, you're all this stuff, all these things that you get when you come out with this stuff, right? It's not worth it. Don't care. It's a compliment. If it's happening, it's a compliment. Thank you for the comment. Skardek. Andrea Balestrero, I don't want to get directly into the merits of the dispute on the topic of copying, inspiration, homage, or plagiarism within the context of an artistic movement or community, if that's what we are. And I think that's a great, exactly. Like, I may be bullish on this community at times, but who knows? I think the art, again, I see Mirakid at the start there, and I go, okay, what else is out there? And then I'm kind of back to Mirakit, and I'm going, this is pretty rad, right? So let's continue. I have mixed feelings. I don't have sufficient information to judge the specific case, which I think is probably the most rational, I would argue, despite everything I've said, the last episodes, it's probably the most rational interpretation, right? Because who's to say? And this is the thing. In that case with RJ, you look at each little thing, it's all circumstantial. It's all, you could say, plausible deniability. There's plausible deniability in everything, even in the waffles, right? So, but when you zoom out, you go, oh, maybe there was something kind of, let's call it like a portrait that was starting to emerge, but I don't think it's worth talking about. This is where I'm at here. And you know what? If I feel that way, I should just go, that's great. And if waffles, and I feel bad. Because I brought him into this. He didn't ask to be put into this. All of a sudden, and it's kind of intense for him. And he's like, well, why am I in the middle of this controversy here? Right? So, but in my, for him, I would say, if that's how you feel, and I don't know, you can, as I say to everybody, you cannot care. It's a compliment. Right? And if it's so easy, then maybe we need to push things forward, which was an early view on the show before I felt where I saw too many derivatives and I just felt like it was too close, and they do exist. Right? So it's a very complicated, difficult issue. Let's continue. But I can say one thing. This is Adrian's journal, and it's commendable that he takes the risk of expressing his opinions so clearly, yet civilly and measuredly, even when they appear like a personal attack. One of the things that has most damaged contemporary art in general, I'm not even mentioning art on the blockchain here, is the disappearance of criticism in its etymological sense of judging, distinguishing, separating, which has been transformed into marketing. It's precisely this, that's so true. Isn't that true? It's precisely this critical ability that I appreciate the most about this space. So thank you for the measured and, I think, fair answer, Andrea. Ty May, thank you for featuring my work. Appreciate your honesty and how you handle difficult conversations, which are often the most important ones to have. So I really appreciate that comment. And it is. I knew I was jumping into, I went clear-eyed, okay? Kyle Flemmer, another heater of an episode. Adrian, stick to your guns. So this is where I'm at on day 3. Jacob the Ape, how relieved were you when you found out it was only muted for a few seconds? Great show. As I said to Jacob the Ape, I thought it might have been muted for 10, and I didn't know for the 10 minutes, and I didn't even know for the rest of the episode. But I was like, Relieved to know it was only a few seconds. Nicholas Dietrich, fair play, Adrian. Your integrity and honesty, even in difficult conversations, is why people respect your opinion. So thank you for the comment, Nicholas. Great to hear from you. We have a beautiful work in progress from Nicholas Dietrich coming up. Fernando Fragoso, you have to go with your values. Perfect. Some collectors will always try to protect their bags. It's clear on crypto Twitter and marketplaces. Pumping and promoting the same names. It's pure manipulation, unfortunately. And remember last episode, someone was asking like, oh, where do you think the crypto kind of the art scene or art on the blockchain is going? Where do you think it's going? And I think it's actually going to go to a much better place in some regards as it opens up to larger, hopefully. It's not guaranteed, but it looks like it'll happen sooner or later as crypto becomes truly integrated into everything, is kind of how it's looking. Or blockchain technology, shall we call it more kind of with nicer words. As that happens, you are going to get a change in the taste, and I think it'll overwhelm. For all the money that's in crypto, I think it's still like a $4 trillion market cap. And then the rest of the, hundreds of trillions that come into the system, I think it'll actually create a new, as Jedi Wolf was kind of mentioning, I think we're going to get a new landscape. A new taste. And I actually think this show should stand up pretty well in that whole reassessment that I'd argue is coming. Regarding the artist, to succeed, we need passion, consistency, and an authentic style, hard to be replicated. And this is a good, yeah, exactly. Like if it's super easy to be replicated, then maybe that's a problem, right? Then you have to push yourself further. And I have to say, put it this way, here's another one. And, this is actually a great illustration. So I have Secret History of World War III, and I was using a ton of screenshots in 2016. And then I see Wade Guyton had actually, where I hadn't seen before, had done an inkjet of the New York Times. I'm not sure if it was 2015, maybe it was 2017. I don't remember. But all of a sudden, my heart sank, and I was just like, oh, okay, my whole screenshots of the New York Times and all this sort of thing. But then I was like, I need to push this further. And I did. And I started breaking up the words and whatever. I was like, I got to make this my own. So it became in a sense, to your very important point, and it's harder to replicate. Like, it's just going to take you a lot more man hours or person hours to make that. It was very manual what I was doing, So I think if it's too easy to replicate, that is a call to make things harder to replicate, more complex, more sophisticated. In a sense, what I am suggesting here in this entire discussion is the artist has to take full responsibility. They have to take full responsibility on everything. And if they're getting copied, they just have to say, well, that's part of the business. I'm in this business. I love this business. It's part of the trade. And if my work is so easily copied and maybe even done better than me, then maybe I need to push things, right? It's just, I just think that's the better approach and the happier approach. And, so let's continue. But we can't develop it overnight. It takes time. That's why some just copy the others. And it does happen. I mean, ironically, there is a copier of RJ. And maybe I shouldn't say ironically, like there is a copier of RJ out there too. So it's like, right? It's just what it is, especially when we're dealing with anonymous accounts, right? Anybody can just load anything up with their anonymous accounts. There's no accountability. So again, my thing is artists need to just take 100% responsibility on their work and be happy if people want to take it as a compliment. If you feel like your work is being, influencing others, it's a compliment. Much love to all. Keep building. Thank you for the thoughtful comment, Fernando. Denirus, marvelous show. People confuse your kindness with weakness. Keep it up, Adrian. Much love. You know what I thought to that is, yeah, I'm on the St. Patrick's Parade Society in Toronto. Those are tough people. And I get along with them fabulously. Those I know some union, people who work in ports and unions. Those people are real. Let me just tell you. Thank you, Denirus. Hilarious. I've been there 8 years, maybe longer. How long has it been? 2015. I would say, and 10 years. I am actually phasing out of it. I simply don't have the time, but I love those guys. Anyway, let's continue. Low Trips, always Team Pocobelli. Thank you, Low Trips. Martin Bruce, great to hear from you. Just a genius. I saw a whole bunch. Actually, I didn't bring him up here. I didn't bring up a ton of works. I wanted to get through the comments without the computer dying. Everything here. That's more important this episode. We'll hopefully go back to the art next episode. Time to watch Pocobelli Abstracts Builds. So, which of course, Abstractus Build. So of course that is abstract images. So build is an important word to know for those that don't know German. That means image. That's why you have the tabloid called Das Bild, the image. Cool title, right? Thousand Lands, great episode, sharp and to the point. Thank you, Thousand. Jan Lucas Magon, cheers, coffee cheers, indeed. Blank JPEG, thank you for the comment. Rada, I'm so proud to be all around this. You rock, Adrian. Hope the show grows and becomes an institution. Thank you, my friend. Rural Idol, props for being so real in a challenging space and method. I have huge respect for you. I know we are of an age and have a shared sensibility in terms of accepted bounds of influence, inspiration. Hope you guys can find some common ground moving through it. In a sense, like I am at peace. And I hope, put it this way. I heard, I was hearing that there was crying, that there was mental, I should be concerned for mental health. There's that first tweet, the retweet of the show that got deleted by RJ. So I was concerned. So I want people to know, because I've met RJ and he's a nice guy, right? But the only thing I would say, and again, my new mindset is cool. I don't know if it influenced him or not. I say cool if it did, is kind of my new updated way of thinking. And I put influence is how I would describe it. So let's see. I mean, I think it's too soon. Some people are like, oh, we should all be peace. I think it's just too soon. I think you let time pass and you see if it just happens organically. Nobody wants a fake, I'm not really into fake reunions, right? But a nice thought. Human Boy, I hope there can be a space with a moderator or at least some broader discussions between all parties. It would be nice to see this from all perspectives. It could be a great lesson for all witnessing and a path for all to step forward together. So again, I would say with my updated thinking, and it is updated, and I'm happy with it. I have no beef. I understand if he has a beef with me, and he can discuss that. And I would even go so far as to say, and we'll discuss Staggy D in a second, like if they want me to remove those episodes, I will. I would go so far as to say, so all that being said, for what that's worth, I hope there can be a space. Okay. Thank you for the comment. Revolu, thank you for the episode and to bring my work on stage, Poco. You're welcome, Revolu. Really cool person, posting in the community and everything. David Lockhart, I thought RJ was another Waffles alias. Thank you for standing up to the community, for the community. David Lockhart, so kind of a newer entrant in the community there. Thank you, David. But no, that is not the case. Hal New If Mill, thank you for the comment. We have a very long comment from Absurdeity here, but we'll bring it in. GM Adrian, I'm not going to wade into the controversy regarding whether or not the similarity of RJ's art to yours and Waffles is proof positive of plagiarism or not. And I don't think it is proof positive. I think it's a whole bunch of circumstantial evidence, all with plausible deniability along the whole way. So should it even be mentioned? But I would go back to, this was a community concern at the end of the day. This was and it really, when you hear the responses and all the stories, and frankly, I didn't expect any support. I thought maybe the show's over, but I'm going to do this anyway, based on what I thought, but based on previous thinking. I have updated thinking where I go, if that's what happened, that's awesome. Right? So here we go. You've stated your case. I am ignorant of the intent and facts of what has gone on between you and RJ behind the scenes. And frankly, I feel I have insufficient knowledge to cast judgment, which I think is the rational interpretation. And I think there's nothing definitive. This is the thing. You cannot police the visual arts, right? So what do you do as an artist? You do what I would call the adult thing, is you take full responsibility and it's a compliment. I'm acting, however, to push back on a comment you made about the actions of Deggy D, which I took to imply that their overwhelming support of certain artists has a market-manipulating motive beyond just continuous and unnecessarily generous support of the artists they wish to see succeed. If I misunderstood what you were trying to communicate, then you have my apology in advance. So a very nice and fair enough, I'd actually say. I'll tell you what the fear was. I'll tell you, I had a creeping fear over a few weeks. I'll tell you what the fear was. And maybe just paranoia, but... And I hope Deggy D understands this. The fear was, and as someone who's invested a lot of time in this scene and watched it grow and see how spectacular it is, the fear was that a kind of, what I felt was almost like a kind of ETH culture picking, king-making sort of situation was happening that was not necessarily that was based on who was basically the richest or the people with the most money who are willing to spend to create outcomes. That was my fear. Okay, and I was going, is this distorting the market? Is basically what I was wondering out loud. And I think it's an interesting question. However, this is like, look at the contemporary art world. I would say the contemporary, this is just going to happen. And then all of a sudden, there's going to be a mega whale that comes in and all of a sudden different heroes are made. And it's just kind of it's just nature of the market. As I said, I felt like there was a comment in here somewhere, not here, but where it was that I felt misrepresented how I described the situation. But that was my concern. Okay. And I think we'll get to that comment. Let's continue. Having been involved in a collector group chat, is what GC means, with some of the more prominent collectors on the Tezos blockchain, I can state with absolute honesty that if there is a cabal, I've never been inducted into it yet. What there is evidence of, however, is groupthink and a bias towards social proof, indeed. I think I have an episode, called with social proof in the title. Deggy D, for example, does not have some sort of entourage of sycophantic collectors, as you seem to be implying in the latest Artist Journal episode. But when Deggy D makes an offer much higher than the last sale amount of a one of a particular artist, which they have every right to do, and I've yet to hear an artist complain of, other collectors are going to take note of that. Yeah, so again, maybe I would even go to, in a sense, I would say maybe I overstepped there, right? For that people understand where I'm coming from, that was my fear. Is all of a sudden, but this is going to happen. Is kind of where, what? You think it's going to be like sunshine and rainbows and that money isn't going to influence this and that people with more money aren't going to start basically being able to dictate outcomes? If I have a problem with that, go make a bunch of money, Pocobelli, and put your hat in the ring, is basically how I would, again, take full responsibility of the situation and go, well, if I want to change it, make a bunch of money, right? Or if I'm concerned about that and, get in the ring, so to speak. And to be honest, there's a bit of a friendly competition among collectors who know and respect each other. So a natural consequence of that is that when and where competition amongst collectors heats up, the valuation of a particular artist will at least temporarily increase, of course. These are simple market and game theory dynamics, not conspiratorial cabal machination. So I hope I've explained what my concern was and where that was coming from. But again, fair enough. I think I overstepped there. So apologies to Deggy D. Artists in this community, including you, should be grateful. I think I mentioned this, though. This is actually what I was talking about, where I thought it was misportraying what I was saying here. Artists in this community, including you, should be grateful that there is a dynamic of playable competition among the collectors. I think I mentioned that I actually stated I think Deggy D spent more money in the Tezos ecosystem on the art here than anybody, by probably a long shot in the last 6 months. So I did mention that and has bought my work and has sent me work. So I did want to mention that. But again, I'm not guided by what people buy from me or the money that they give me or the works that they send me. Okay? I'm not guided. I'm going, at least in my brain, you might interpret it differently, but in my brain, I'm going, when you're in tough, discussions, you have to go with your values and what you think is the best, outcome, what's just, as far as you can tell. And we're all, let's continue. Now, if sticking up for my friend who have done nothing wrong other than throw their money at artists they wish to support makes me part of a cabal, then so be it. So fair enough. Hey, Absurd Deity. Let's actually see. I didn't see this. I really appreciate your comment, especially since we've never actually interacted directly. So thank you for stepping in like that. It genuinely means a lot. I prefer not to comment on it because I choose to avoid these types of discussion in public. Now, this is a tricky situation because, I was, put it this way, some people would object, or a person doesn't want to have things in public. And that is where, again, why is what I say. Why? What does the transparency hurt? What is the problem with having these? I understand where people, that you might not feel comfortable with that, but, in a sense, I'm in the ring here. And if I'm willing to, I don't see why people aren't willing to discuss unpersonal matters in regard to philosophy on the market and what is happening in public. I would still say, in a sense, where's the, I'm a transparency person. If you don't know and you feel like, I didn't meet anybody privately. A few people want to meet privately, and I was like, no, right? From a transparency perspective, because I want these things to be in the clear light of day. Okay, where, I have a conversation and my opinion changed. I think people deserve to know. Now, that being said, hey, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, and I respect that. Nobody, free country, free world, Diggy doesn't have to do anything they don't want to do. Fair enough. Social media can be brutal, and I want to avoid that. If anyone wants to discuss this in private, feel free to hit me up. Much love. So, fair enough. I agree with this. There certainly would be better places to impose a cabal-like manipulation than a few artists on Tezos. Great point. So, thank you, Jacob the Ape, for commenting. Grace, Pocobelli. So, actually, I brought this up in the next tab. We're only on tab. Is this tab 2? That's hilarious. Thanks for the show. You made a serious and explicit claim that Diggy D is pushing floors, manipulating prices, and acting with some broader financial agenda. That's a disturbing accusation in which I strongly disagree. Unless you have concrete proof, I am an idealist. And I think fair enough. It came out of that fear and concern. Okay, but at the end of the day, put it this way. This is a beautiful thing that's been built here. And so there's a fear and concern that I was starting to see like an ethification, so to speak, and that's almost unfair to ETH, right? There's a lot of great collectors and art and everything on ETH, and this isn't a Tezos. I'm multi-chain. I put work on ETH, right? So yeah, let's continue. It's been one of the most prolific and diverse collectors on Object in recent months. I mentioned that. I said probably the most, and I mentioned it again here. During a time when most money has gone to a single artist whom I happen to love as well. As for RJ, many of us genuinely love and connect with his craft work. We've collected his work across ETH, Tezos, Rodeo, and we love having him in the space. And I think that's fair enough. And my thinking on this is that's great. And I never actually thought that people should not buy his work or anything. For me, it wasn't about there should be me wanting to impose consequences. For me, it was about shining a light on this and go, what do we make of this? As I opened the waffle segment with, what do we make of this? And then again, these are improvisations. I hope you know, right? This isn't, I think about things beforehand, but I'm on, this is live in my world, okay? Let's continue. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, but since you publicly, fair enough, this is the implication. Fair enough, this is the implication. I never put those words together, I would argue. And again, we're going to see, I'm happily showing evidence here, compelling evidence, that maybe this is all in my head. Okay? But since you've publicly accused, that is not true. Maybe by implication. Okay, I'd welcome a fuller explanation in the interest of transparency. I think I went pretty in depth in that episode. I'm not sure if you I assume you watched it. I made my case, but, again, with what I would call updated thinking, I say if there's influence there, I say great. I'm glad that such an interesting, great artist like RJ might be influenced by what I'm doing. Is kind of where I'm at now. Okay, that's because it's the only way. You have to basically have this mindset, as I've repeated here. Last, since there are dozens of actual plagiarism cases on Tezos and ETH, it would be valuable if you'd highlight those artists in future shows so that collectors may be more aware. And that is the last thing I am going to do here is turn this into the, visual arts police hour. Might be kind of like, if I was an anonymous account, Grace, maybe I would consider it. But I am not an anonymous, if I wanted to really shake things up, create an anonymous account and then just go get a voice change filter AI and then, go to town. But it's kind of like, there are a lot of people, I think, who are exhausted by this week. I guess I'd call myself included, but I think a lot of people are kind of exhausted by this conversation. It's a difficult conversation. I actually think we got somewhere, though. Like, this is, to me, the sunshine and rainbows, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here, or the light after the darkness. I actually think we got somewhere, which is, again, great. Great. That's cool. Wow, someone likes my work enough, take it as a compliment. Since there are dozens. Okay. P.S. I do not participate in any Tezos group chats, though I'm sure many exist, and I have no access to any info behind what's public. My interactions with you have also only been public, and I appreciate that. I like that, to be honest. Like, that is, like, I have some friends that I message or who message me, and we message back and forth. And that's nice and that's good. And so they're kind of like friends who, are interested and have conversations. But generally speaking, I prefer it to be all in the public, all in shining a light on it. And I hope even with this whole sort of, quote unquote cabal discussion, which, did I say cabal? I don't think so. But probably the implication was there. Fair enough. Right? Like, let's try and be as fair as we can. Because if I'm not fair here, people will be like, well, that guy, is just like running around, not being fair. So I have to be fair, in my opinion, as fair as I can be to maintain credibility. Right? So thank you for the comment, both of you. Absurdity and Grace. Stevie Ghost, thank you a lot for showing my work. I'm learning a lot every episode. I'm glad to hear. And here's the comment, actually. Manta timing. If your entire artistic identity is so fragile that someone using a technique threatens you, you're not an artist, just a gatekeeping hobbyist. Brutal. Techniques are open source. I can understand why you're mad if your work is only method and no substance. This RJ shaming is gross. So, a brutal comment. Look, there have been concerns, to be fair to me. There are kind of concerns that I was speaking the unspoken among many people, I would argue, okay, in the community. In a sense, I was voicing a concern of the community, is how I would characterize it. Now, in terms of your initial point, if your artistic identity is so fragile that someone using a technique threatens you, you're not an artist, just a gatekeeping hobbyist. Well, the gatekeeping is a separate issue. That's the curation, right? But you're just a hobbyist. And I actually agree with that. I agree with that. And that's kind of where I was 3 weeks ago when I was telling my friend, I'm over it. It's not, if I can't, I agree on that point. So, yeah. Now, in terms of the gatekeeping, that is just a tough nut to crack. Like, I thought, well, seeing this comment, I was like, maybe I shouldn't be even curating here. And then I saw comments about, oh, it's so centralized on Tezos. I assume the implication is like Pocobelli has too much influence. And, I'm getting a lot of shade, which is fine. I walked into this hornet's nest that I started, poking at. So fair enough. And yeah. So that I don't know. Like, I was even thinking, maybe I should just go to the history of art and talk about that. Right? But it's a different show. So I could. Maybe that'd be super interesting. And I even thought, what I could do is I could have a consultancy and have it behind a Substack and charge people who want to actually see the curation. And just let people in. And if there's people who are friends of mine who are in poor countries who don't have the money, I just give them a open access and whatever. And then, but everybody else, and then I can actually keep people out, if that's something I want to do. So, it did trigger some interesting thoughts. I don't think I'm there yet, But if I was to, I don't think I'm there. I think the art, you see Murakit, right? I see Murakit and I go, I don't want to stop talking about this stuff. This stuff is so exciting, and it just gets more exciting because the artists keep getting better, right? So as far as the gatekeeping, like what can I can only do, I follow RJ, by the way. Everybody drink. Someone said that's a shot game. I follow RJ. I never unfollowed him, by the way. So RJ put out a statement yesterday. I have a self-portrait up right now for the Wonderful People of Tezos series, along with a bunch of other brilliant artists. And thank you to everyone who's bid so far. I brought it up. Okay? It means an incredible amount right now. The work is a digital painting of a selfie I took in the mirror of a lift. The brushstrokes are fragmented, distorted, and glitched through dither cycling in an attempt to convey something of the breakdown of the unity of the self that I feel inevitably comes as we give more of ourselves to screens, to social media profiles, and to the disembodied shadows of ourselves that these networks create. While this is especially present and concentrated in the self-portrait, that is a concern that I'm always interested in, and in a way, a lot of my works are forms of self-portraits. The vast majority of my recent paintings are taken directly from my life, portraits of my family, of moments of insomnia, anxiety, hopelessness, drinking, smoking, vomiting, all mediated through the information systems that we now live amongst and between. I wonder how figurative and abstract figurative painters of the past 100 years would have explored this state, how Freud, Auerbach, Bacon, Hockney, Kossoff, Andrews, Kitai, Pippin, Twombly, de Kooning would have reacted, or what digital painting by Rego, Saville, Lasnig, Eisenman, or Homer French might look like. And a lot of artists that I don't even know here. I know some of them, but I don't even know a lot of these artists. So maybe RJ is more competent. I don't know. I've also been no doubt inspired by everything I've had the honor of being exposed to in this Web3 community I've been involved in over the last 4 years. I felt deeply and felt part of something very special. And on the note of that beginning, going back to Tezos' genesis, language has always been more important to me. There are words throughout my work from that first piece till now. Text artists like Lehrling, Holzer, Kruger have inspired me, along with literature and theory studied throughout my PhD from Eliot, Joyce, Kafka, Ashbery, Ballard, Gibson, Dick, Fisher, Lerner, and way, way more. A lot of the text I've been including comes from here, as well as my own writing and poetry, which I've spent years compiling, and which, if anyone wants to read, I'd be very happy to share. Anyway, thank you wholeheartedly to everyone for the support. The positives and the relationships that have come out of this have been unbelievable. There is work upcoming that I'm excited to share, though I will most likely be around here less myself for a while. Thanks again. And I don't want, but I mean, look, maybe he needs to take a break. We all need to take a break. So there is, want to be fair to RJ, there is the full statement. Okay, and I also brought up here, The Compelling Evidence by Yuran Yekon. Comment on difficult conversations. So another monster thread here. We're on tab 4, so I may have to hurry here. I have to make clear that I don't know any details about the relationship between RJ and Pocobelli. I remember that they know each other in person because once I saw a post from RJ about them visiting galleries in London. And with the last episode of Artist Journal, it became clear it's a complex story. Adrian is maybe the most influential person in this space and community. I was actually surprised to read that, which is interesting, and probably I shouldn't be. But again, I live in this weird world where maybe that's why I can talk like this, right? Maybe that's why I can just kind of sound off, because I just go, okay, there's my thing. And then I see, oh, cool, there's some numbers. It's all abstract. Probably if I did some psilocybin, I'd be like, holy shit, this is incredible. The only time I've sworn on this entire program. Well, except for Mo. Mo once, Mo SHIT. Okay, let's continue here. The digital art, by sharing his ideas so publicly with everybody, he basically becomes a co-author of all the artists. And I have to take responsibility for that too. If I'm going to start sharing a bunch of ideas, don't be mad if people use them, right? Or if people get inspired by them and want to do something. The journal is itself a collage that creates new connections and meanings that are adapted by the artists in basically real time. True. When Adrian takes a pause and there are no videos for a few weeks, a lot of people start noticing the feeling that some important part of everybody's process is missing. Well, thank you. And when you said you talked about 200 episodes about different types of pixelation, I think it is inevitable that artists will adapt that and try to push further in that direction. I myself, for example, feel very influenced by Adrian's thoughts on the pixelation topic. So in the framework of the journal, Adrian is a kind of meta-artist curator. So very kind thoughts. Thank you, Yuran. And therefore, the individual artist, Adrian Pocobelli, outside of the journal is sometimes very hard to distinguish from the meta-artist of the journal. All sounds reasonable to me. And I agree with Adrian when he says that he didn't sign up for everybody can include everything from everybody with blockchain technology. But with his journal, it is different. And I think that's also fair. Your persona in the journal is truly open and you are sharing your deepest thoughts on art and everything, and many people love you exactly for that, but it brings with it, in opposition to a lot of artists doing their work more or less behind closed doors, a different role. We all have to think more about ways to contribute to the fantasy of art on the blockchain like you do. Not as a space of pure speculation and genius cults, but of encounter, communication, artistic freedom. Exactly. I mean, this is the concern that I had, maybe unfairly, and actually, I think we could say unfairly with Deggy D. Okay, that was the fear. Okay, maybe I'm paranoid. Probably. Okay, so artistic freedom, connection, or something that is more than our individual is more than our individual will to be special. Another important point is the acknowledgement of artistic progress, and that is what artist Adrian is claiming with his work from 2023. And for what I know and what Adrian explained, it is maybe partially a legit claim. But I also think with more money flowing into the space community, the trap that we have to avoid is to align artistic values with monetary values. And I think, like Adrian mentioned, with bigger collectors pushing prices for certain artists, it is easy to feel left behind or not getting the credits for certain accomplishments. And probably no one will believe me, but again, I wasn't even mentioning my stuff. I brought up it was the waffles that triggered me here. And, but again, I think it's not actually up to anybody else. There are other copiers of waffles too. There's like the AI scraper. So what are you going to do? Try and stamp all these out? Or you just go, as people say, that's just my responsibility as being an artist with influence. Like, I am coming around to that opinion. You know, and otherwise I just don't see a way forward. You can't police it. There aren't even footnotes here, right? I use a lot of, what would you call it? Appropriated work, right? So if I use paint strokes from famous artists, you can start to, so I have to be consistent here. And then I release those works, then what? Therefore, it lies in the responsibility of a successful artist to at least partially feed profits back into the community and acknowledge that what we do here is not at all purely individual achievement. Back to the pixelation debate. I checked RJ's work from early 2023, and for example, the work Untitled 1 from July 2023 holds in it the trademark RJ pixelation, and that is before Adrian's November 2023 release of the promoted stories. So I will show you that. And I think it's a compelling case, actually, because it is kind of, it's a compelling case. It is different pixelation. Is it incorporated into the forms? No, but who cares? It's kind of where I'm at here. Who cares? And in terms of my own sense of, is it? Because it's just lame. Like, from my own perspective. Like, I don't want to be, how dare you, as I was, admittedly. Let's continue. So on the other hand, I think we can easily acknowledge Adrian's influence on the progress and pixel aesthetics. And on the other hand, we have to make a clear yes that RJ is an artist always open to include new aesthetics in his work. And maybe he's sometimes crossing a line. Therefore, this debate is even more important. And it did come out of, I'm back to, this wasn't a Pocobelli issue. This was a bit more of a community issue, I would argue. Feel free to disagree with me on that. But RJ is also a lot more than a certain pixelation, the Crash series, and the latest, maybe more problematic works in regarding to waffles. His early works, and also a lot of his latest works holding so much conceptual qualities, storytelling qualities, narrative qualities, summed up there are a lot of authentic artist qualities in RJ's art. RJ's a brilliant artist. I will say, I even bought one of the later, works with the mixed pixelation. So I say that as a way of saying, look, I felt like there is some influence there. But I still bought the work, right? So what does that say? It's probably worth a lot of money now, right? A 1 of 1 for 150 Tezos, right? So in a sense, and I can see why it could come off that, how dare you? The train of events was really waffles, the situation. I went through some, and I have evolved thinking now. It's like, I can't care. And it's a compliment. But I was concerned, and I was like, it was kind of eating me up a little bit. As it eats up a lot of people. I got messages from several artists. Eats them up. Okay? So it's a real issue. That's why you see artists on one side and collectors on the other, generally. Not exclusively, but generally. Okay? Let's continue. Did he give him insights into his process? Okay. Did Adrian share more than just outputs of his work from 2023 with RJ, or did he give him insights into his process? To be fair to me, and again, I don't care anymore. Frankly, I'm happy for RJ. But I was. And that's on me. I'm sharing that in the journal. I go, oh, I made a sale. This is like combined retro pixels, magic wand. Okay, that's how you do it, right? So I have to take responsibility for that. Because in my opinion, being influenced by just outputs and then starting to create similar but not the same sort of aesthetics is legit, even more when the conceptual ideas and subject is a different one. Right. So, yeah, again, how do you deal with this? I think, it's different, so you just can't care, is what I would say to any artist that's concerned. Take it as a compliment, as I've said 10 times here. Concluding this comment, I want to say that it is maybe the best for everybody to take a step back to look at the situation that is always greater than our individual feelings, behaviors, and thoughts and ask ourselves what matters and be honest with our individual intentions. And I think one of Adrian's biggest achievements is to become more than just an individual artist struggling for his own value, but dedicating himself to something much greater, by creating the format of his journal, which maybe doesn't include harvesting the golden fruits at the end of the sunny summer, but I think there will be flowers in the spring. Beautifully put, Uran. Yacon, I share my opinions on this topic with the same honesty Pocobelli had opened this debate. I really appreciate that. And I hope people can see that. There's a lot of hate out there for me, which I understand. I signed up for going into this whole debate. But I feel weirdly, starting on Monday, going into, frankly, the Inferno, I feel like I'm coming out on Canto 34, and it's like, oh, cool, back in purgatory. Awesome. Let's go up the mountain now. You're in Yacon. I share my opinion. With this comment, I want to contribute to this community, and I hope it's possible to come together and clear things. I think I offer a solution to that, which is you can't care. You cannot care. It is a compliment. It's a mindset issue. So there is the work. There is another work here. Actually, this is the work that Uran Yacon was mentioning. So here, okay, different kinds of pixelation. There's the big pixels that are being masked, and then there's the little pixels. And then over here, these are look like they're transformed, right? Okay, fair enough. And here's RJ and getting 1,500 Tezos, $1,200 for the work here. So there's RJ. So congratulations to RJ. And I'll even go so far as to say after this huge monologue, 57 minutes in, which I didn't plan on doing, by the way, but sorry to RJ. I will say that. This is, and why shouldn't I say it? That is my new mindset. If there was, I think that's great, is where I'm at, okay? So I hope this whole process actually has actually got us somewhere. It was painful, but for me, at least personally, it's going somewhere. Of course, I follow RJ. You can all double check. RJ, new work next week, heart. So that makes me happy. When I saw this, I was actually okay, there's not some huge crisis over here that I need to be concerned about. So that's good. We looked at this. I was going to highlight Grace's comment. We already looked at it. August Ground, who of course I follow. Y'all, controversy is good. It means people actually care. We don't need to color inside the lines, just inside the lives. Beautiful. This is interesting too. I may stop the video, actually, just so I don't lose this video. I'm going to stop the video and just so I don't lose it. And then because we kind of went through the hard part here, I don't want to have to re-record this. But this is kind of relates. Hold on. Okay, we're back. So LA Survey. So LA Survey, the Berlin Biennale is gratingly evasive by Lauren Euler. This is for Art News. And I think this relates to us. I'll just read. So this is Art in America, which is an Art News, section of Art News relating to, of course, art in America, or maybe an offshoot. As it says here, artnews.com. So here it is. The Berlin Biennale is gratingly evasive. So I just want to read a couple of paragraphs. In the days leading up to the 13th Berlin Biennale, I heard two things about it: that everyone knows it's cursed and that no one ever remembers it's happening. Hilariously, I haven't been to it. I was in Greece during the opening. Usually that's when I go. Reviewing the Berlin Biennale is a poison chalice I refused. An editor told me, I just don't think about it, an artist said. It's sad. Although I've been in town for every iteration since 2014, it's true that I had never been, and I wouldn't have thought about it either, except what a controversial subject that no one cares about is not the worst writing assignment. A controversial subject that everyone cares about is. I thought that is the worst writing assignment. I think that's hilarious, because that's almost where we ended up there. But you see how brutal this is, right? So this is real journalism here. Like, I think this is great. Again, they're airing out their stuff, and they're like, why aren't you talking about this? My ex-boyfriend Jeffrey had also taken a wincing swig from the cup of German contemporary art writing gigs, and so fear-mongered into showing up early by urging emails. We arrived at the Sophie and Sele, eagerly anticipating what every other journalist, as well as well-meaning cynics who like to watch. Okay, so we don't need to go on and on. What are this point non-stories about the disturbed politics of this country's cultural sphere unfolding through the outraged social media post was eagerly anticipating. The lengths to which these recipients of German government funding would go to avoid talking about the genocide in Palestine. Okay? And so now on this show, I have a policy. I don't talk politics because it's kind of like we had a very divisive week, right? It was divisive. And so I don't talk, it's pointless. This is an art show, right? The closest I get to politics is the free market, which I like, right? Most of the press conference was boring, but as artists participating in the show, whose names have not been announced in advance, presumably to stanch controversy, slowly trickled in from their flights and trains to sit alongside Biennale's organizers. So all to say, this is brutal, but this is the world. And so all to say, we're not the only ones having difficult conversations here, is really what I wanted to highlight by this. Should they say anything? Shouldn't they say anything? All this. So this is cool. Human Boy, thanks for posting. Art for everyone. So I quite like this. I thought that was, it was probably, I assume it was Brian at Object's decision, or I think there's two co-founders. That's cool. I thought kind of a sophisticated gesture, I would argue, within the context of, I assume they're thinking, and it is actually a better tagline, so maybe it has nothing to do with our controversy. All to say, I think really cool. B, Art Basel's Miami's exhibitor list shows heavy hitters like Gallery Buchholz, who's in Berlin, maybe other cities too. Green Neftali didn't return. Is this a real opening for in silico art galleries? So basically saying, should silicon or should digital art galleries or is this an opening for digital art? Miami might be the perfect place for computational art to break into the big leagues. Collectors here already understand digital ownership and smart contracts. Screen time, while traditional galleries retreat, in silico art should step up. Now, I think if you took what I would call the mainstream ETH aesthetic, not to be controversial, as I wade back into controversy here, and you presented it at Art Basel, I think they might get a little surprised. Like, put it this way, I would argue, and feel free to disagree, but it's a pretty important topic because people are starting to spend a lot of money on digital art, particularly on ETH. Also on Tezos, but more on ETH, I think we could say. We have Raoul Pal, who we have a couple of tabs by here. And I would just say, if you're going to get, my prediction, which I think is probably pretty accurate, where you get traditional art people, and then you start showing, what I'd say, which I just put typical or classic digital art that's celebrated on ETH, or just digital art in general. There is a sense, it's back to that word garish. I think they'd be like, oh my God, they would be mortified. I think is what would happen. It's a real, from a visual aesthetic judgment point of view, it is a real culture clash. So I'm not sure it's as simple as there's free tables or free exhibitor booths, let's just set up and that'll somehow work out. So anyways, but interesting. Gallery Buchholz, not going. Raoul Pal, there is a very, very small window to buy digital art from established and newly established respected artists at reasonable prices. A very small window. Consider this a warning, so the hype doesn't get any bigger than this, does it? Yes. So there's the hype. Brian, this just simply isn't true, replying to this tweet by Raoul Pal. Collecting art will always be a niche market. Your favorite artists aren't going to stop creating, and new artists are constantly popping up that you can discover. The general population can't and won't be spending a lot of money on art. This is interesting. And then there's the, it's coming up. I was going to say the institution discussion. Beatrice, this morning I read a well-known collector say there's a very, very small window to buy digital art from respected artists at reasonable prices. This kind of message is exactly what makes my stomach turn. It's not a warning, it's manipulation. They create fake urgency. It's always the same story, hype, fear, and the illusion that you're missing out on something huge. But behind that, just someone trying to pump their own bags. I mean, when you see that kind of hypey tweet, it's hard to disagree. But I mean, that's just the optics. I mean, so I think it's a fair opinion. Is it true? I don't know. Art isn't a limited time offer, and collectors deserve better than this. So interesting. Nathan Head, July's NFT volume is only 3% of what we saw in the 2021 bull market peak. So you see the hype engines are at full blast here. Let's continue. Eli Scheinman, crypto is no longer a niche thing. Rather, it's increasingly the rails for the global financial system and markets. The value proposition hasn't changed at all, but regulatory, UX, and cultural norms had to evolve. That took time. It is painfully obvious to me that digital object authorship and ownership as NFTs will follow a similar adoption curve towards ubiquity. So there we are, digital object again. Interesting. Justin Trimble, if I were an institution in 2025 deploying serious capital into a single JPEG collection, I know exactly which one I'd choose, and it's not close. So I assume that is the crypto punks here. But I'm like, we hear all this institution stuff. Like, I mean, there is some talk. Like, I guess that, you know, it kind of like the equivalent of a MicroStrategy, the equivalent of a MicroStrategy type, you know, reserve where you put things in, where you keep accumulating, and then that somehow this will benefit you in the long term, right? I don't know if that's the institutions they're referring to. I think it is, but I don't see MoMA. I don't hear anything about MoMA, the Whitney, the Louvre, or I guess the Louvre went by digital art, but you know, like Tate Modern, you know, or KW out here in Berlin, or the National Neue Museum. So I wonder, like, what are they talking about? Again, the institutions are coming for, like, companies? Art gnome. Most of the artists I would prefer if you would stop worshiping 2 or 3 projects from 7 years ago, like they were cave paintings, and instead would consider collecting their work from this year. Poignant tweet from Art Gnome. So, you know, the people are swinging here. So we are not alone here. Cube to Kant. It's good to have, as August Ground says, people care. Pixelism is a movement in art. So all to say, in Kant, a really just stalwart person in the Tezos ecosystem has a new show, Pixelism #2. You're in Yacon, Suji, Retro Manny, My Eye, and Haiti Rocket. And so that is August 1st. So that is today. So go check that out. Very cool. Here's Nicholas Dietrich, new work in progress, elevated city view, back to the green palette. Love this. Feels very computery. Feels very kind of like old school computery. Mech.txt, I kind of love this, actually. Lord have mercy on us. Indeed, my friend. Indeed. Beautiful artworks here. Indeed. Let's continue. Cap'n, what lies far beyond the void? So Cap'n continues his adventures here. So not exactly sure. Right? I mean, it's pretty interesting what Cap'n is up to here. As you see. So, yes, so I mean, this is becoming like what is Cap'n up to? He needs almost like an explainer video, you know, or like maybe we do an interview or something. XML, here strolling in. Comp Art's always believing in Ghost Auction by Cody of Houston. So cool. So there's that new myth work. And very cool atmosphere here. Nice little video. Because, you know, I'm one who never wants to load these things up. My fan starts going on my computer. It's kind of a pain. This is great. Like, if you're going to make a 3D art show like this, like, definitely do a video. I'd even put it on YouTube. So very cool. Seba Sestaro. Look at No Hygiene. 125,000 views on Instagram in one day. Angel. Okay, so, I mean, pretty amazing, actually. So a little risque here. A little bit, not really. 125,000 views. Interesting, though, the difference. 2,000 on X. So you should, as an artist, interestingly, I mean, what's the moral of the story? Make sure you're on both platforms. Rustic, the Rustic, overwhelmed by the support and unironically shaking right now. Of course, Rustic was broken into. bottle opener. Put out some great works. I assume this is what it's about. Sold out works. I mean, selling for a song here at $320. This gorgeous work, bottle opener. Love this piece, and we have a few others. So congrats there. Find yourself. It's the little Mario guy with maybe all made of Mario guys, I think, and it's the cropped Mario guy. So super interesting conceptually as usual. God is real. Again, edgy decisions here. What is going on here? And then fuzzy and sharp, and here you have some margin and everything. Edition of 1, 35 Tezos. Available. Is that available? Oh no, sold. Sold for 35 Tezos. This was brilliant. I almost started with this. Hills. Pretty rad by Walk. Kind of looks like the Windows 95, I'm assuming. Start page, beautiful. Great title too. This went to Del Ronda for 150 Tezos. Nice work. Here is Zozo. I hope this plays. It will play in slow motion here. After all, he's apologized to Zozo for the internet here. So thought we lost our video for a second. We're good. So all to say, cool work from Zozo, as usual. From 0 to 1, love the title at 250 Tezos. Has anybody bid? Neon Monk bidding. So nice little liquidity here on Tezos. Snuff 1914, Pallida. Beautiful frame here. Beautifully colored frame. Another just original artwork here. You gotta love the creativity of Snuff 1914, edition of 1, 80 Tezos, and just listed. Here is Skamra, an edition of 1, 50 Tezos at auction. So you can, I guess that's where the bidding begins. A gorgeous piece here by Skamra. Love the edges. So beautiful work there. Listing of Lullaby, Yuri J, picked up by Deggy D for 444 Tezos, $354. As you see here. And here, yeah, so I mean, just like hyper textured. Now, I believe this is part of a series, The Art of Proper Sleep. So it kind of looks like a person sleeping. We have another one, another person sleeping. So just cool subject matter. This went to John Harry, Close of Eyelids. Great title, 500 Tezos. So Yuri J continues to do quite well here with these gorgeous works here, as we see. So great textures, great everything. As we continue, there's another one more abstract, Deggy D picking this one up for 500 Tezos. So spending a lot of money here. So as we see here, kind of more again, oh, there's the person. See the head? And more people sleeping. I love the very original subject matter here. Search of comfortable pose. A place bid, 500 Tezos. And so a bid has been placed for 500, as we see here. So here, a mosaic filter. I think that, I'm not sure if that's the pixelation film. I'm trying to remember. Anyways, effects on effects, as we like to say with Yuri J. Here's Kazuhiro Ehiro painting. So here is one. I think there may be others. The show is going super long, though, so just wanted to show this one. Here is another one. This is teledophonics, let's call them. So cool abstract here. Kind of looks like a physical, but hard to tell. Is this a physical? Digitally glitch of a dip pink ink drawing. So this is combining physical and digital work here. Interesting. Here, time magnetic horses. As you see here, another interesting, I assume this is new, and as you see here, cool abstract, probably uses AI and just one of those, almost looks like other works, previous works, kind of a variation on what Dan Control does, you know, reusing elements, perhaps, I speculate. Artistic Coma, Ilya Bliznets. So cool painting here from Ilya Bliznets, as you see. So again, I think this is, what is this? AI and digital painting. I thought so. I didn't want to say AI without it being stated there. 300 Tezos. Oh, this is from a while ago. So I guess just posted again. So cool work there. Seaside, another work by Scomra. So gorgeous piece here. And that stable diffusion and different textural inversions. And that is 100 Tezos at auction, starting at 50. So we'll see what that goes for. Mirayida, who I met in Florence, just launched on Super Rare and did very well. So Gradient Horizons, I think she put out a whole series, if I'm not mistaken. Here's one of them. Some cards here and some cool gradients from Mirayida. Here's Ezra Eslam, who of course I follow, GM Internet Addicts. So there's, I think it's Doom. I don't know if it's Quake. I don't know what it is. In the Middle of a Jungle. Here's Katarina Create, Bloom of Memory. So very nice piece here from Katarina Create, edition of 1 for 50 Tezos. Great work by The Myth, Nap in the Underworld. And wonderful. It almost looks like the old pixel art. It almost looks like the old Microsoft Paint. Love the blood down here. But I think this is still done, I think, with Procreate. Pixel Brush, Pixel Myth. Using a pixel brush. One Tezos. But it harkens back to those early myths, which are fabulous. Koneko Shibuya pixel art. So here you go. Wonderful piece here by Shibuya. Looking like for a very interesting phone. Continuing on, Manadol, City Paws Sanctuary. Gorgeous, gorgeous work here by Manadol. A couple of cats. Interesting color scheme, almost like a retro kind of palette per phone. Here's Element Lee, Values, interestingly, and I love, it's so poetic. Very poetic work here love it, by Element Lee, fabulous. And we're going to bring up the next one. That was on X, Blue Car by the Road. Another just cool, kind of bold work here. I think of the Courage of Nuv when I see this here. And it looks like the fireworks reflecting on the car and the hood of the car. That's by Element Lee, and 5 gone so far. Milk, GM, let's go. Just cool, creating out of operating system components, a fighter jet. Here's Perfect Loop, and pretty rad artwork here. I would make it bigger, but it might screw up the internet or screw up the phone, computer. So there you have it, Mine Runner. Here's another brilliant work by, let me actually close this. Here's another brilliant work by Perfect Loop. Love this piece, Solitaire. I mean, is that just oh no, it's more than the screenshot. How cool. Who doesn't relate to this one of a certain age, as Rural Idol says, who is of a certain age? Kyle Flemmer, Alleyway, Finney Street. And let me make this larger. Interesting piece. I mean, this looks like a glitch ROM, but it doesn't look like your typical glitch ROM, does it? Does it? So continues to work with this 3D gaming, which I think is pretty rad. Edition of 15 for 10 Tezos. And here, Ivan Hugo. Thank you for everything. So cool work here by Ivan Hugo. And I didn't see a link, but here, anyways, I thought a nice piece. Looks like it's sold on, I assume, Object. Here's Little Cakes. Being fed everyday horrors. And let me just make this bigger. So let us see. So here, there we go. And there's Little Cakes. Kind of an AI video, I assume. And it kind of looks like the Little Cakes figure we keep seeing. One assumes. Being fed everyday horrors. Cool work. Close. Composition 526. So here it continues. Composition 526. El Crego. Here is a work. I thought this was pretty rad, actually. Just almost looks like a photo, but probably gradient sky. And then right in the middle, you see some TV snow and maybe like a broken glass here. Almost looking at the wiring behind the Matrix, so to speak. This was brilliant. Mario Carrillo. I'm not really like a huge, animated abstract guy, but this was next level. Wasn't it? Neural, like I show them, but like this was like pretty spectacular. So anyways, cool. You're in Yacon. Thank you for this. So Nuck, thank you for this beautiful gift for my daughter. You are too kind. For the eyes of small equals stream coming into an ever-changing world. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Work here by Uran Yacon. Here's Acid Boy, the master, as I like to call him, of psychedelic abstraction, with an epic work as it comes for us and circles us and goes back. What a piece. How's this doing? 13,000 views, pretty good. And forgive me, I am, just trying to get this show done. Peter the Roman. Another cool, I guess we'd call it a photo of a sculpture done with AI that maybe we will see in real life at some point. And here is a cool, who is this? Andrea Balistrero, sold out. Great work. Is this, the question is this digital? It kind of looks like it. Very nice digital work here. PNG, 1024 by 1024, AI art. Interesting. Very interesting AI art. Here's Die with the Most Likes with another stunner, frankly. Look at this. Gorgeous. It's turning gorgeous here. On the face, in the watercolors, spectacular. So wonderful there. And here is Walk Again. Kind of looks like Jesus, not sure. Masterful, as usual. And that is your show, my friends. Thank you again for tolerating me, putting up with me, and showing interest in this show. And until next time, take care.